Om Tat Sat. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, to sage Narada, and all other sages and saints, and to each of you divine soul watching today's satsang. So today we will be covering Sutra number 48, part number 2 from the Narada Bhakti Sutras. We are on chapter 2, Glory of Supreme Devotion. Commentaries by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, and narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let's get started. Sutra 48, chapter 2. We were talking about the different attributes of Bhakti. So now we will be talking about karma sannyasa. Sage Narada says renunciation of all karmas or actions. The majority of people are burdened by the pressure of frustrated desires and manifold psychological complexes and thus are led to perform actions. Such action is called paradharma or others' duty. So that is, swadharma is our own duty that comes naturally and paradharma is someone else's, because it is not in harmony with our own inner nature. So on the path of karma yoga is actions, things we do. However, an aspirant learns to practice desirelessness in his actions, which allows him to become naturally inclined to actions more in harmony with his personality. So what that means is that we have to do actions that come naturally to us, that we enjoy doing. That is what is our swadharma, because they are part of our personality. Thus he turns away from paradharma and he becomes increasingly aware of his own swadharma or duties. And this is also covered in great detail in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna continues to guide Arjuna on the difference between swadharma and paradharma. Swadharma means your duty, paradharma means someone else's. So that someone else's may be his swadharma, for you it's paradharma or not your natural inclination. So therefore we should try to always follow the path of swadharma, things that we are naturally inclined to do. So he then transforms his involvement and into a process of nishkamya karma yoga. So if you do it nishkamya, which means you don't want anything, you are just doing it for God's plan, for humanity, for selfless service to help others, then that purifies his heart by removing such impurities as greed, pride, passion, jealousy, hate, infatuation. All these things start to get cleansed if we are seriously pursuing this path of non-attachment. This in turn allows him to witness the waxing moon of divine love within himself. So why should he do this? Because he is becoming an instrument in the divine plan and he is removing all these impediments. When the true spirit of karma yoga is adopted in the life of the devotee, he no longer lives for the perishable action, rewards, etc. He is out of that, but for the attainment of liberation, where the world process ceases to exist. So he's no longer interested in just the worldly things. Now he wants mukti, he wants liberation, and that is a beautiful aspiration. That's a spiritual aspiration he works for. He turns away from the world of pravritti. It's called the natural outgoing desires of the world process. They are called pravritti, and then he enters into the world of nivritti, which means the world of spirit. So instead of the natural inclinations and desires, he is now going into more at the Atma level, the spirit level. There the ego is negated. See, the ego will keep coming up and we have to keep putting it down like a whack-a-mole and dissolved in the ocean of divine love. So we have to enjoy that nectar of divine love. So the statement that a devotee renounces all actions should not be interpreted to mean that he becomes absolutely inactive. That's not the point here. When we say karma sannyasa, we cannot have karma sannyasa, which means we do complete in action. That's simply not possible. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna guides Arjuna very specifically. He says, no one can stay without action even for a single moment. So the gunas that are born of Prakriti, which are attachment and hatred, etc., they impel a person to constantly perform actions based on what is his inborn nature. So these are the same essential teachings in all the scriptures. We just have to learn how to implement them in our daily lives. So it's nirdvandva, means going beyond the pairs of opposites. As a result of pursuing the previous qualities that we have talked about, a devotee transcends his ego in daily life. So that is the whole point in becoming a devotee, because the ego has been so addicted to getting its own way that now that when you are going on a different path, it feels agitated and frustrated. And these come in dualities, isn't it? The duality mode of pleasure and pain, praise or censor, gain and loss. These are pairs of opposites which abound in human life, and they continue to agitate the human mind. That's the thing. But on the path of devotion, an aspirant tries to maintain a balanced state. So he doesn't have too many peaks and valleys, he doesn't get too high and too low. He tries to maintain equanimity, balanced, while facing these normal disturbing influences, because they happen even in sadhak's life. They get sick, they have troubles, they have things, but they are able to handle it much better than most people who are thinking, and they get frustrated by all these pairs when they come. Obviously, when things are good, everybody likes it, but when things are bad, we don't like it. So therefore, the guidance is that you try to maintain an even keel. So, the noises of the ego do not mar the spiritual sensitivity that allows him to listen to the divine melody that flows in his heart. Because the ego is constantly hankering and crying, it becomes a very noisy atmosphere inside. Therefore, we cannot feel the peace, the melody that is actually playing all the time. But when you silence yourself and you're in harmony, you're in sattva, you wake up early in the morning, there's no disturbance, and you're peaceful, that's when you can start to hear that beautiful music. Therefore, these noises which keep the undisciplined mind in a state of constant distraction of the ego and this, that inside, they now turn into soft whispers and ultimately blend with the cadence of eternity. So they slowly start to calm down if you are consistently following this holy path and you are becoming more and more devoted. See, a mango tree yields its sweet fruit even to those who throw stones at it. That is the essential nature of nature itself. It gives, it just gives. Water gives itself to everybody, the fruits give themselves, the sun gives its radiance, and so on. Much in the same manner, a devotee yields his spiritual fragrance even to those who criticize, vilify, and endeavor to harm him, because that is the nature of the saint, to give himself. The smell will the fragrance invariably spreads. A rose can be cut, it will still continue to give its fragrance to the person who cut him. So, immune to the pairs of opposites, a devotee enjoys the indescribable sweetness of divine love, and at all times. So, it becomes more stable, and that's what this whole sutra, the whole scripture is about. Narada Bhakti Sutras, it's about para bhakti or divine love. So this was the depth. As you can see, each of these sutras are extremely profound, very deep, and it's easy to read them and have a quick satsanga, but to implement them is a lifelong journey. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.